Hey, welcome back in, all you DPC rebels and resistance fighters. I got a resistant fighter with me here today. We're going to talk about something very interesting in the DPC employer arena. Kind of just came out the last couple of weeks or so. Some legal issues, some legal brouhaha going on in the DPC employer benefits advisor employee neighborhood. I don't think it's been out there too much in the DPC community, but we wanted to bring it to you because we do have some benefits folks that watch our videos and some employers are watching. So I wanted to share you guys. Might be a little bit longer than 5 minutes today, but we're going to split this up into another video for next week too. So today I have Miss Cristy Gupton from Custom Benefit Solutions out of North Carolina. And we've been digging in a little bit to this Johnson & Johnson lawsuit, another lawsuit for them. This one's an employee has brought a lawsuit against Johnson & Johnson for a class action lawsuit saying that they have not upheld their fiduciary responsibilities, which is a fancy way of saying, hey, you're spending too much of our money in our medical plan. And so I want to talk a little bit about that. You know, what does that mean when you're on a ERISA self-funded type plan, which is what Johnson & Johnson uses? You're supposed to be really protecting the employee's money. So what that means, and then focus a little bit more on next week, hopefully, about what this means for DPC people. Because I'm going to show you, probably next week, I'm going to show you, they actually mentioned direct primary care in the lawsuit, which is pretty interesting. Not in a bad way. I mean, they just mentioned how DPC can save money. So this is just a little bit of, I don't know if you guys can see this, but this is basically from Reuters. I just wanted to show you guys this. So this is in some of the big news magazines, news journals. This is a copy of the actual lawsuit, if you guys want to look at it. So it's Lewandowski versus Johnson & Johnson's a class action lawsuit. So I think people have been expecting things like this to come. And so here's the first big case of it. And so wanted to share a little bit about what this means to you guys. I want to hear from Cristy because she's talked to a bunch of people about this and she's talked to some lawyers about it. And so I just want to talk to it. So Cristy, you tell us, what your vibe is on this and, kind of what it means from a nuts and bolts standpoint. Tell us what it means for employers and DPC docs who work with employers a little bit.
Sure. I think you're right. A lot of us have been on the edge of our seats sort of waiting for a suit like this to come. We knew that it was coming. And the suit really alleges that the fiduciaries of the Johnson & Johnson health plan are in breach of their fiduciary duty. And they actually named by name the three top human resources professionals at Johnson & Johnson. That's pretty eye-opening. But they named the rest of the benefits committee and all of the C-suite and the board of directors because all of those people owe a fiduciary duty to the members of the plan to make prudent decisions about how those funds are dispersed to the members.
Yeah.
And so allowing certain expenses to be drained out of the plan assets either arbitrarily or without the fiduciary duty for prudent decision-making to occur is a blatant breach of fiduciary duty. So let me just take you back a little bit to explain about why the fiduciary duty exists. So ERISA, ERISA, which stands for the Employee Retirement Income Security Act, was passed in 1974. It oversees both retirement plans and health plans. However, many of us have been complaining to the federal government for a long time that the retirement plan side of the house is being over-scrutinized and the health plan side of the house of ERISA was being ignored, completely ignored. And there's much more bleeding dry of plan assets going on the health plan side than there ever thought about being on the retirement side. But both of those sides really do deserve oversight, transparency, and prudent decision-making. Because let's face it, both employer money is going into those funds and employee money. And so when you commingle both employer and employee money, there needs to be very stringent oversight and prudent decision making as to how those funds are spent. I mean, let's face it, on the retirement side, look at what happened at Enron. Remember that from, several years ago? Many people realized all of a sudden that their retirement plans were defunct. And so their hopes for a healthy retirement and cruising right into their golden years, all those hopes were dashed in an instant because those fiduciaries were not performing their fiduciary duty. Well, the same thing is occurring on the health plan side and has been for a very long time. The crucial change that happened just a couple years ago that made this lawsuit a possibility, really, was the Consolidated Appropriations Act of 2021. So you probably know some of those bills are like these big omnibus bills that include lots of moving parts. Maybe they even are passed to fund different parts of the government. Well, those of us in the Health Rosetta and some of the other, brotherhood, sisterhood types of groups that consist of advisors like me who are really adamant about transparency. We'd been working with individuals in Washington, D.C. and other stakeholders to get transparency rules passed, and it happened in the Consolidated Appropriations Act of 2021. So that gave ERISA like new legs, especially on health plans. And so if it hadn't been for the Consolidated Appropriations Act, I don't think that this lawsuit would have had the kind of standing that it has. But those transparency rules are very important. And, the fact that we've got at least one big watershed type of case to call attention to is really a good thing. It's a gift, honestly. So,
yeah. So that's interesting. So I want to just real quick, we'll close out this with a basic question. What this plaintiff, the lady says, she mentions like a specific medicine and how much you could get it for generic, because us DPC docs do a lot of generic medications in our office. So the complaint specifically mentions a medication, what she could get it for cash and what they paid. What were those numbers?
Sure. Let me just say, first of all, the complaint itself is 74 pages long. If you read all 74 pages, and you probably should, it's pretty interesting. You'll see that they come up with dozens of examples of what they're calling generic specialty. That category should not exist in PBM land. There should be no such thing as generic specialty. It's either generic or it's specialty. No gray area there. So that was one type of the monkey business that was going on with that PBM, which is in this lawsuit is named as Express Scripts. So the plaintiff really is alleging that there is so much overspending. In some examples, it's hundreds of percentage points above fair market value. In some cases, it's 12,000, 13,000 percentage points above fair market value. In each case, it outlines, or in each item, it outlines that you can buy this named drug for cash for pennies on the dollar. So one that stood out to me was a multiple sclerosis drug, a generic, which Express Scripts is treating as a specialty drug, which has a very arbitrary term and a definition. But a 90-day supply, that plan, the Johnson & Johnson plan, is paying $10,000 for a 90-day supply. It's teriflunomide. We looked it up earlier. So Dr. Purcell pulled it up. You can buy that drug for a little less than $100 for a 90-day supply. So the kind of price gouging, and I'll just go ahead and rip the Band-Aid here and call it money laundering. That's what I think it is. You can't convince me that the definition of money laundering doesn't apply here. So that sort of price gouging that very negatively affects the members of the plan, that's where this fiduciary duty and how the members of the plan are unnecessarily pickpocketed, basically, is the one of the important elements of this complaint.
Yeah, it was very, very interesting. So, want to talk a little bit more about this. We're going to go to, we're going to wind it up right here. We're going to have a part two where we try to focus a little bit on how the DPC docs across the country might see this and the little comment in this lawsuit about direct primary care. So you may hear about this, the Johnson & Johnson lawsuit, the employee lawsuit, and fiduciary responsibility, and employers spending way too much money on care. So you may hear about this in some of your meetings over the summer. So just thinking about that as you meet with employers and benefits advisors to see how that's going on. So we'll come back next week for part two of our talk. We'll talk about how this may affect DPC clinics. And other than that, you guys have a great weekend. I hope it's going to be beautiful for you where you're at. And until then, just keep the DPC magic going, guys. Okay.